The relativism surrounding far-right groups and the claims of two-tier policing in Britain is a concern that underscores the broader tension and the role of law enforcement. And for people to turn around and say, "Oh well, you're coming down so much harder on the right-wing protesters who are only expressing the will of the people than you would on Muslim protesters." Well, I'm afraid I don't subscribe to that view. I think what's interesting is that the right-wing protesters are at least admitting that they've been protesting and rioting, and that they have gone over that red line. So whether they are treated more harshly than others, they've still offended, as have the others. People intimidating newscasters from whichever news channel they happen to be. Of course, we've only got the news channel's word that these are Muslim protesters. They may not be. But the relativism and the tendency to downplay or excuse the actions of right-wing groups, framing them as mere expressions of legitimate political dissent rather than acknowledging their role in fostering violence and hate and thuggish behaviour on the streets. This relativism is compounded by this perception of two-tier policing, where law enforcement is seen as applying different standards to different groups. But, the bottom line is, what is the offence? For example, right-wing demonstrators are sometimes treated more leniently compared to other protesters, particularly those from minority or left-wing groups. Because, it's the Just Stop Oil people who've got the harshest sentences. And at the moment, we've got people claiming an imbalance that's eroding trust in the police. It exacerbates divisions within society. Yeah. We've got all manner of problems all the way through our society at the moment because it hasn't been well looked after, particularly since Brexit. Because my argument is very clear, and I'm certainly not going to change it simply because I'm looking at this two-tiered allegation. My argument is that the government and our public services have been too self-obsessed since Brexit to actually deal with delivering the service which is necessary. And the divisions within society are exacerbated by the failure. Is the state complicit in, or at least indifferent to, the spread of far-right ideology or the spread of left-wing ideology? No, I think the point is the state is in a position of inadequacy. The state hardly knows what to do. The police, the government hardly know what to do because they've been so run down by this obsession with, fiddling around with the toenails of our Constitution. And this issue isn't just about policing. It reflects the broader social changes in how extremism is recognised, addressed, condemned, dealt with. And that means a proactive, an engaged and an informed society, an informed police force, an informed government, an informed legal system. And when far-right groups are not adequately held to account, it sends a dangerous message that their views, their actions are within the bounds of acceptable discourse. As indeed, when far-left groups are not dealt with and are sitting in the street and stopping the traffic and stopping ambulances and stopping people getting to work or getting to school, normalizing hate, encouraging further extremism on the left or the right. We have to have a better way of dealing with discussion, because these formulae of going out onto the streets like some sort of mad individuals in sort of street violence in Athens, which I remember vividly, where people would get equipped with their Vaseline and their balaclavas and their Molotov cocktails, and it was a day out, really. That isn't a way to behave. And this street protesting, these marches today, with the kettling and the constraints and the new laws, this isn't a way to attract attention. You only march because you want to debate the issue, because you want the issue to be brought to the attention of the system. But the system has found a way to manage that. The system has found a way to process that. So what is the point? If you've got a big enough crowd, maybe that makes a statement. But for the most part, these crowds are not so staggeringly huge they bring the city to a stop. We need to use social media. We need to use other forms of other forms of protest, other ways to make a noise. To protest literally means to make a noise, and yet we've had sort of laws which restrict the noise made in a protest. It's nonsensical. That's not a protest. That's a contained, constrained event, managed. And we need to find another way to get the ear of the system, because this way isn't the way forward. And as for the violence, it has to be absolutely and utterly condemned. And addressing all this requires a more consistent, a more principled approach from both law enforcement and from our political leaders, but also from those groups in our communities that are inspired to participate in these things or to arrange these things. We need better and more creative thinking. On the left, on the right, in the centre, it doesn't matter. There needs to be an unequivocal rejection of aggressive ideology. At the moment, that seems to be from the far right, and a commitment to equitable policing practices that don't favour any particular group based on ideology, race, or other identities. And only through such measures can Britain hope to address the deepening divisions and restore faith in the fairness and the impartiality of the institutions that represent our government and our civilization. Because at the moment, we're failing.